Hi, and thanks for tuning in. If this is your first time checking in, please click that subscribe button down below, and remember, likes go a long way to help support the channel. In this video, we're going to be reviewing and installing the Bilstein 5160 Reservoir shocks on the rear of our 2015 GMC Sierra. I have also included links in the description below for all of the parts that I'll be using in this installation, so let's go ahead with the unboxing. There really isn't a whole lot to this. We'll pull the shock out. You can see it comes with a band that is on the shock. You want to leave that on for the time being. You have your mounting hardware, which it does come with these basic rubber blocks and some basic clamps, but in my opinion, if you're going to be spending this kind of money on shocks, you're not going to want to be seeing these clamps from the distance. So I did go ahead and pick up what they have as an additional part number, which is a billet aluminum Bilstein mount for this Reservoir, and this just looks 100 times better, and from an aesthetic standpoint, I highly recommend picking those up. So let's go ahead with the installation, and I'll throw a couple jacks underneath the truck just for a little support, and you will need these later for maneuvering the shocks. And I also dropped the tire. This is an unnecessary step, but for filming was necessary, so I did go ahead and remove that for the process. Gives you a little more room to move around under the truck as well. Removing these shocks is extremely simple. It's just 2 bolts. The shock drops out and the truck stays where it was at. You just set that off to the side and then grab your new shock, and you're going to go ahead and just put it right back in the same place. The only difference with these shocks is you want to make sure that the fittings and the hose to the Reservoir are free of obstructions. They're not going to grab at anything. And now this is where the jacks are going to come in handy. You just jack the truck up, you can get that shock lined up, feed that bolt on down through there, and thread the nut back on the end of that bolt. Now you can lower the truck down, which will relieve the pressure off that green strap, and you can now cut that off as that's no longer necessary. And now we can mount our Reservoir in place with our billet aluminum bracket. Now this process is a little bit easier done if you just put this on, get it roughed in, and just sort of snug it down, and then get to the outside of the truck, look at it from the outside of the wheel well, and get it all in position, and then tighten it down. Like anything, I learned this the hard way, doing it 2 or 3 times, and then realizing I could have just done it that way to begin with, and it would have saved me a little bit of time and messing around with the alignment. And then we'll just torque all of our bolts down to spec, and we are done with the driver's side. And then we'll move on to the passenger side. It's just the exact same process. All in, this installation took me only about an hour, as replacing shocks on the rear of a truck is actually a really simple process. So now we'll go head on to the testing, which I did a 1.5 mile off-road, kind of a dirt trail, which has a little bit of a washboard, just a little maintained, but ultimately it is a bit of a rough ride. I felt this was a good example of just kind of a quick test on how these shocks performed, and I will be comparing these to the Rancho Z71 shocks that we did replace. So as you can see here, we ran this through the same paces. Now the Rancho shock, the camera mount was a little bit loose, and that is why it's shaking a little bit more, but the shock movement you can still see is quite a bit more than what the Bilstein is showing on the same trail, and ultimately the ride quality, it translates into the cab. I mean, these Bilsteins are absolutely incredible. I am blown away by their performance. And not only did I want to show just the video of how these worked, but I also wanted to show the temperature differences as to how the Rancho gained temperature and how the Bilsteins gained temperature. And as you can see in my testing, I took a snapshot from the very beginning before I ran the trail, and the Ranchos were about 86.5 degrees, and then the post-run they were 101.2, so they gained 14.7 degrees in a 1.5 mile loop. The Bilsteins fared much better. They started at 65.3, ended up at 68.6 at the shock for a 3.3 degree temperature gain, and at the Reservoir they started at 65.1 and gained to 71.1 for a 6 degree gain. Now I did run these at 2 different times in the day, and that is why the temperature to begin with was lower, but as you can see here, these Bilsteins just look awesome. I love the performance. On the highway they've been running great. I would highly recommend these to anybody who's looking for upgraded shocks. Now the next project I would like to do is these Bilstein 6112s for the front of the truck, but I cannot find these anywhere. The only place they exist is in this Bilstein catalog, so if anybody from Bilstein is watching, please let me know where I can find them. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for future videos and updates on these 5160s in the future, and remember, a like goes a long way to help support the channel.